Welcome to Trust Talk. Our guest in episode 78 is Stephen M.R. Covey, a renowned author on leadership and trust. He highlights the crucial shift described in his book Trust and Inspire from traditional command and control leadership to a modern trust and inspire approach. He highlights the distinctions between these models, focusing on efficiency versus effectiveness and managing things versus leading people. The conversation explores how these principles extend to personal life, education, and remote work scenarios, emphasizing that trust remains paramount. Covey addresses common barriers to trust-based leadership and the need for behavioral change. He underscores that leadership is stewardship, emphasizing responsibility over rights, and that leaders must model, trust, and inspire to unlock individual and organizational potential. The interview concludes with a discussion on restoring trust in professions like accounting and the critical role of leaders in modeling trust and integrity. Your host today, Severin DeWitt.
Stephen, welcome to Trust Talk.
Thank you, Severin. I'm really excited to be with you today.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on our show, the esteemed author of best-selling books on leadership and trust. And thank you so much for your thoughtful and inspiring words in the book you sent me. I read the book with pleasure.
Wonderful. That makes me very happy.
Stephen, in your book, you highlight the importance of moving away from outdated leadership models rooted in the industrial age. You call them command and control, towards trust and inspire approach. What, in essence, is the difference between those two?
Command and control, that approach, that style kind of flows out of the industrial age world where the focus was on efficiency. And that was useful and it helped us organize and scientific management, all these things. But over time, it became less and less focused on the importance of people and relationships and partnerships and culture. And so we brought things into it like emotional intelligence and strengths and became a more enlightened command and control, a better version. But it's not relevant for the world today with as many as 5 generations, including these younger generations of millennials that want to be engaged in a different way. And there's so much change and disruption going on and the need to move fast and to be relevant, to be collaborating and innovating constantly in this changing, disruptive world. Command and control doesn't do a good job at doing that. So I contrast command and control, the old model, to a new model that I call trust and inspire. So command and control, the focus is on efficiency. Trust and inspire, the focus is on effectiveness. Be efficient with things, but be effective with people. So command and control, the focus is on managing people and things. In trust and inspire, we manage things, but we lead people. See, I'm not against management. In fact, we need good management. We need great management of things, of systems, of structures, of schedules, of inventories, of the numbers, of the business. We manage things, but we lead people. But sometimes we've gotten so good at managing things that we start to manage people as if they were things.
Talking about people, you believe in people's potential for greatness, creating collaborative environments and modeling behaviors and stress that leaders should not micromanage, right? What made you write about that?
Yes, because there is so much potential inside of people that we're not tapping into or getting at. I love the expression by Mahatma Gandhi when he said the difference between what we are doing and what we are capable of doing would solve most of the world's problems. And so how do we tap into that potential, that capacity, the talent that's out there in our people? And I think it starts with the mindset, the paradigm that there is greatness inside of people, that there's true capacity and talent. And that our job as a leader is more like being a gardener than it is a mechanic. A gardener tries to create conditions for the seeds to flourish, to grow, versus trying to fix things. A mechanic fixes things and people. A gardener creates conditions for the people to grow. But the life and the power is in the seed, and the life and the power is in the people. We're gardeners as leaders. But it starts with the idea of seeing the potential inside of people, having a growth mindset, as Dr. Carol Dweck from Stanford says, a growth mindset, not just for ourselves, but for others, for those that we're leading, and seeing the potential and the greatness inside of them, and seeing that our job is to see that potential in others, to communicate that potential to them so that they come to see it, to develop that potential, and then even to unleash it. That's, I think, the essence of great leadership, seeing and unleashing the potential in other people.
In Trust and Inspire, your book highlights the significance of what you just also mentioned, an inspiring and a trustworthy leadership approach, where leaders believe in the immense potential of individuals, fostering collaborative and supportive environments. I'm curious about how you envision these principles extending beyond the workplace. Specifically, how might they influence and impact other aspects of our lives, like our personal relationships and parenting styles, or the way teachers treat their pupils or coaches train their teams?
Severin, you're absolutely right. This is not just something for work. This is an entire approach to life and to leading anywhere in life, to parenting, to being a good neighbor and friend and community member. And I like to say that the key to becoming a trust and inspire leader is first to become a trust and inspire person. So it's just part of who we are and how we lead, where in any relationship, we're trying to see the potential and the greatness and the talent inside of people and unleash it. As a parent, yes, we want to provide discipline and structure for our children, but we also want to see their potential and help them come to see it in themselves. And we see our job is to try to help them see who they can be, who they can become. We're, in a sense, trust and inspire parents. We can apply it really in any walk of life. You mentioned in schools with students. And if you think about it, that's what a teacher does. Yes, they are teaching and sharing insights and wisdom, but they're really trying to help the students see and develop the talent, the greatness, the potential that's inside of them. They're trying to unleash that. They're trying to develop it. But it starts with what they see. I love how Henry David Thoreau said it. He said, it's not what you look at that matters. It's what you see. And when you see the potential in others, as a teacher in my students, as a principal in my teachers, as a parent in my children, as a friend with my friends. And so I think it does apply to any walk of life. And in fact, in the Trust and Inspire book, I have a whole chapter where I say, trust and inspire in any context, in parenting, in teaching, at home, in the community. I think this is a way of living and of leading that applies to all of life.
Stephen, a thing that I want to present to you is about online working relationships. A friend of mine recently came back from a business trip to San Francisco, and he was shocked to witness the impact of remote work. With more than 60% of office buildings empty, Meta downsizing its office space, and even half of the shops on Market Street closing. So, considering this shift towards remote work and reduced face-to-face interactions, how do you believe it might affect trust among team members and their ability to collaborate effectively?
Yes, we're seeing a lot of this. Remote work or some hybrid work, some combination, right, of remote and on-site, some combination, intentionally flexible work. And sometimes, depending upon the organization, the context, the nature of their work, it can have an impact on how they work together or how they collaborate. But the interesting thing is that all of this still requires trust. Trust is the foundational currency that really helps this to work. Because I've seen sometimes people are working remotely, and yet they still don't feel trusted by their leaders. And in some cases, they feel like they're just being micromanaged from a distance. I've also seen the same thing happen when people are together on site where they don't feel trusted. So the fact that you're remote or on site doesn't mean that you can't have trust. You could have it in either or both situations. You just have to be deliberate and intentional about it. And in remote work settings, it heightens the importance of becoming more intentional, more deliberate, more explicit, because you just don't have those natural proximity type conversations and interactions. But you can still build trust remotely. Similar principles, but you're more intentional and deliberate about it. And you can still collaborate remotely. But again, it starts with that trust, because without trust, we don't really collaborate. We might merely coordinate or at best cooperate, but real collaboration requires trust. So I think that this is a new world that we're in. And remote and hybrid work is part of this new world. The nature of the workplace has changed. And trust remains the key currency. I recently spoke at a conference in New York City, put on by Chief Executive Magazine, on remote work and hybrid work. A lot of leaders from companies came in and shared different models of what they were doing. And there were many different models of a hybrid combination or remote and intentional and flexible work, lots of different combinations. My main contribution to the conference was this, that there are many possible right answers for your company. But what is foundational to any of these answers really working is trust. And with trust, you have all kinds of possibilities that can work. But without trust, you might have a remote or hybrid work model that might work for another company, but without trust, it won't be optimized for you. And so trust is the currency, the foundation of really what makes all of this work, including hybrid and remote work.
You describe 5 common barriers to become a trust and inspire leader. Let's take 2 of them. The first one is the "this won't work here" barrier. Can you explain what you found?
Yeah, it's somewhat human nature to think, hey, these are some good ideas I'm hearing, but you don't know my situation.
Right.
Like, this is for other people. This won't work here. You don't know my boss. Right. Or you don't know, our CEO, or you don't know our company or our industry or our board of directors. And so I find even with the CEO, sometimes they might say, this won't work here because of my board or because of the marketplace. And so it's human nature to kind of look outside of us, to look out the window and pointing the finger at everybody else instead of looking into the mirror and to take responsibility and to own it. That's the idea of overcoming that first barrier, which is a natural inclination to maybe say, hey, I like this idea of trust and inspire. That sounds really good. I'd like to be this way with my people, but this won't work here, not in our industry. And I'm trying to say, well, what if you were to become a model of this kind of leadership, this trust inspired leadership, maybe even in an industry that's filled with command and control all around you? You become a model of a better way to lead. And if you become a model, you can then become a mentor. Maybe you can begin a ripple effect from the inside out, starting with yourself. And you're overcoming the tendency to kind of point the finger and say, nice idea, but it won't work here. And I say, no, let's look in the mirror. Let us become the model who then can become the mentor.
Another barrier is the fear of what if. That sounds mysterious, but you can, I'm sure, shed some light on what this barrier is and how to overcome it.
Yeah, just this idea, you might say, okay, I like trust and inspire, but then a whole bunch of different fear-based scenarios come in. But what if I lose control? Like, this sounds good, but I'm afraid to lose control. What if I lose control? And the whole idea is that, well, if you actually build the agreement up front with the person, when you extend the trust, there's actually control in the agreement. And rather than you having to micromanage, there's an agreement that governs. You don't have to. But another barrier might be, but what if I try this and it doesn't work? But what if I've trusted in the past and I've been burned before? But what if I don't get the credit. Because, this is all about giving purposeful recognition to people and helping them succeed. And maybe you don't get the credit. Maybe that matters to you. And then but what if I'm not quite as confident as you think I am? This is a little bit threatening in some ways, this idea of shifting your style from a command and control compliance-based approach to a trust and inspire and unleashing-based approach. So there could be a whole variety of fear-based scenarios that could pop up. And I'm acknowledging they all might be real, but there are solutions to each one of them where we can overcome them and actually allow our creativity, our potential, our desire to create a new way of leading to overcome the barrier, the fear-based barrier that naturally can get in the way. So I acknowledge their existence. I acknowledge that they're real, but I also believe there are solutions to overcome them in becoming trust and inspire leaders.
Stephen, I wanted to talk with you about a specific profession. Trust is a foundational element in the accountancy profession, which has been seriously impacted by the recent event where hundreds of accountants in leading firms were found to have fraudulently shared exam answers. In such a critical situation where trust has been breached, how can your trust and inspire approach help leaders in the accountancy profession rebuild and strengthen the trust between professionals and the public? What specific principles from your theory do you believe can play a pivotal role in restoring confidence in a profession that relies so heavily on the trust of its stakeholders?
Severin, this is a really important question and point you're bringing up, and especially in a profession such as accounting, where trust is the vital currency that makes all of that work. And so when there's a breach in any way in that realm, the impact of that is significant. So here's a way of thinking about it in terms of, is it possible to restore trust? I believe that in most situations, it may be possible, but maybe not in every situation. But I think it may be possible if, and really only if, people are willing and able to behave their way back into trust. You can't talk your way out of a problem that you behaved your way into. And if we've lost people's trust through our behavior, words alone won't get it back. The only way to get it back is to behave our way back into trust, just like we behaved our way out of it. But it'll be much harder to behave our way back into trust. It'll take much longer. There's a Dutch expression that trust comes by foot and leaves by horse.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Yes, you slowly build it, but boy, you can lose it fast. And when there's egregious violations, like you described, it leaves by horse, it moves fast. To restore it, it's not even restoring it by foot, it's maybe by crawl. It is a slow process to restore, but the only way to restore is through behavior. We have to behave our way back into trust. And from the trust and inspire approach, we need to model. We need to go first. Someone needs to go first. Leaders go first. They're the first to demonstrate the kind of integrity that is needed. They're the first to demonstrate the character, the credibility. They're the first to demonstrate the openness, the transparency. If you want more respect, they're the first to demonstrate and show respect. And they're the first to model both trustworthiness, but also appropriately extending trust. Leaders go first, and that's what needs to happen. We have to behave our way back into trust. And that's not easy, especially in some settings like you just mentioned. But it's the only way out, and it's the only way back. And words won't get us there. It needs to be actions, it needs to be behavior. And so this is all about modeling. That's why in this Trust and Inspire, I highlight 3 stewardships. And by stewardships, I mean a responsibility that we have as leaders to model, to trust, and to inspire. And the first of those stewardships is modeling. This is who we are. And initially, when I was working on this book, I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll just focusing on trusting and inspiring. That's the name of the book, Trust and Inspire. That's the name of the leadership style I'm giving it, in contrast to command and control, trust and inspire. So I thought maybe I'll just focus on those two stewardships. But I came back to this idea that no, you can't skip modeling. You can't just stipulate modeling and say, of course you have to be a model. Now let's move on to trust and inspire. No, you can't skip that. You must start. We must, all of us, start with modeling. This is who we are. This is our credibility. This is our moral authority. And we need to go first as leaders. We need to model the behavior that we would like to see.
Yeah, I want to come back to a distinction you make between leading and managing. You advocate that people are creative, collaborative and full of potential, and that they want to be led, not just managed. However, in many instances, the terms leading and managing are used interchangeably. Can you elaborate on how understanding this difference is crucial for building trust in leadership, and how embracing this perspective can unlock the true potential of individuals and teams?
Yes, this is a good distinction, Severin, and I acknowledge that some people use the terms interchangeably, and especially as we work around the world in different languages and cultures, sometimes people might use the term somewhat interchangeably. And in a sense, we might say this, that leadership might be considered the highest component of management. But I think it's useful to have some distinction that you manage or you administer things and you lead people. And the word manage comes from the Latin manus, means hand. So you handle. And also from the Italian maneggiare, which means to handle with skill. You handle horses with skill. What I find is this: people don't want to be handled. Even with skill, they don't want to be handled because they have agency, they have choice, they have capabilities, they have talent inside of them. And they want to be enabled to have some autonomy and some freedom to exercise that, as opposed to managed or micromanaged. And so I like to make the distinction. And again, I don't try to say management is bad, leadership is good. No, they're both good. But the focus is on the context. Manage things, lead people, handle with skill things, lead people. People don't want to be managed, but people do want to be led, and they want to be trusted, and they want to be inspired. And so that's the best way to do it. And I know this all started with Abraham Zalesnik and many others through the years. The distinction between management and leadership, are they different? And I acknowledge that there is some semantics play with this, but I think there is a useful distinction that can be valuable to people. And the best way to describe this distinction for me is manage things, lead people.
Stephen, as we conclude the interview, I'd like to focus on the future. When it comes to CEOs, they hold immense power and influence within a company, often serving as figureheads who reap the benefits of success while being shielded from the consequences of failure. How can we ensure that future leaders step up to the plate, taking full responsibility for their actions, and in doing so, uphold and even restore trust in leadership? How can we encourage a shift in mindset where leaders embrace accountability and truly lead with integrity, inspiring trust among their teams and stakeholders alike?
Severin, I love this question. I think the way you stated the question addresses what needs to happen, which is a shift in mindset. It starts with the fundamental beliefs that we have, not only about people, where we see greatness inside of people, but also about leadership itself. So I think we need to shift the mindset, the paradigm of how these CEOs see leadership. And here's a more accurate complete paradigm of leadership, that leadership is stewardship. It's about responsibility, not rights. It's about influence, not position. A stewardship is a job with a trust. And as a leader, we have jobs with a trust, with a responsibility that's inherent, implicit in the leadership itself. So as a CEO, rather than say, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, I'm the leader of everyone, it's, I'm a steward. I have a stewardship as a leader, as the CEO. And in the Trust and Inspire book, I highlight what I believe are the three primary stewardships, inherent implicit responsibilities that come with leadership, including being the CEO. 3 jobs with a trust. And they are, as I mentioned earlier, modeling, trusting, and inspiring. To model, to trust, to inspire. Modeling is who we are. Trusting is how we lead. Inspiring is connecting to why it matters. These are responsibilities that we have as leaders. And when I see myself as a steward, as opposed to the boss, and when I see leadership as stewardship, as responsibility, as opposed to these are the rights I have because I'm the leader, because I'm the quote boss, that's the whole paradigm shift that begins to make the change, where suddenly now as the CEO, I need to model the kind of behavior that I would like to see, the integrity, the transparency, the openness, the empathy. I just was reading about Satya Nadella at Microsoft and how he described listening and empathy as the most important dimension of his leadership because of how it would help him understand others and how best to lead. And he really has modeled it. He models. But then also, Nadella trusted. He adopted a growth mindset for everyone, not just for the top leaders, but for everyone in the organization, so that they can move from a managing people to a coaching approach, to a trusting approach. And then he inspired by connecting to purpose and to meaning, to contribution, but also connecting to people through a sense of caring and belonging. So Nadella went first. He modeled, he trusted, he inspired. And he's the CEO, but he didn't view himself as I'm the boss, but rather I have a stewardship to model, to trust, to inspire. And what he's done is he's unleashed the greatness of his people, which in turn has unleashed the greatness of the organization. And today, under Nadella's leadership, their stock price, I think, has gone from 36 to about 335. One of only 2 companies in the world to be valued at $2 trillion. And I believe truly that how he's unleashed the greatness of the organization is by first unleashing the greatness of his people through his leadership style. He's a trust and inspire leader who models, who trusts, and who inspires. That's the kind of shift that needs to happen. And I believe the starting point for the shift is how we view leadership, that leadership is stewardship. It is about responsibility, not rights. And when you make that shift, everything else shifts with it.
Stephen, well said. Thank you very much for being our guest today. I very much appreciated the time that you gave us. And I hope your book is widespread because there are some really nice ideas in it. Thank you for being available and love to talk.
Thank you, Stephen. I want to say this, that I think the work you do here with this Trust Talk podcast is significant and truly magnificent. And you're making a real contribution because of the different perspectives and angles you are bringing to what I believe is the most important conversation and topic of our time, trust, because it is trust that makes our world go round at every level, in every dimension. And your Trust Talk podcast is focusing on that. So I commend you and the work that you're doing, my friend.
Thank you very much. You make me blush. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thanks, Severin. Great to be with you and our listeners.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Trust Talk. We hope that you found the conversation valuable and informative. At Trust Talk, we believe in the power of trust to create positive change in the world. If you believe in our mission, we would greatly appreciate your support. You can help keep Trust Talk going by making a donation on our website at trusttalk.co/donate. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps us to continue bringing you thoughtful and engaging podcasts. Thank you for your support and for listening to Trust Talk. We look forward to meeting you again for future episodes.